How is everybody doing out there? Watching this plane with a short contrail behind it. You can kind of see it right there. And just observing the sky this morning. So we have some very sporadic clouds. Kind of fanned out. And if you look right here, it kind of almost looks like something is precipitating downward. See what I'm saying? And we do have a semi-halo around the sun in this cloud that's right here. But the funny thing about this cloud, and if you look at it, you can see that there's a line, and then it kind of has been splayed out, whatever was in a line, by the wind shear. So this to me is an example of the beginning of some solar geoengineering. I've actually seen the planes go and sort of crisscross some of the previous lines that were there. And what you end up having is what looks like some cirrus clouds. But it's not really like a front or anything like that. It's more just like kind of these random lines when we get started here. So we'll see what the day looks like. Already I have a semi-halo, only where the cloud has come through and is in front of the sun a bit here. And I assume that's not because of ice crystals, but because of the aerosols, stratospheric aerosol injection that they are putting up there. You can kind of see the colors in this strand here too as well. Now, I wish I could turn this thing around so you could see me, but I don't really have that option. So I'm just gonna go like this and say welcome to the day. Today, the moon's nodes, the nodes of the moon is where it's a mathematical point in the sun's ecliptic, the sun's orbit, that if you drew a straight line from the axis of the moon at the time of when the moon goes into eclipses, that is where the moon's nodes are. And those move about every year and a half. It takes about 18 years for the moon to go in a cycle. That completes the entire zodiac constellations. And today the moon's nodes changed from Capricorn, Cancer to Sagittarius and Gemini, meaning the south node, which represents the past, was in Capricorn, and the north node, which represents the future, was in Cancer. And now the nodes have switched as they are now in Sagittarius for the south node and the north node in Gemini. So what this means is for like the past year and a half or so, what really should have been happening is that we're coming into our own, into our self, coming home. Cancer represents the home, the mother, the family, and Capricorn represents the external world, your reputation, your career, authoritarian figures, the father, structures, order. And of course, we've had the very well talked about Saturn, Pluto Jupiter conjunction in Capricorn along on the South Node. So we're going through something symbolically in the stars that has to do with restructuring our authoritarian structures and the past. And the last time this happened in Capricorn was the Protestant Reformation. And before that, I know that it is also associated, this conjunction, with the beginning of the Babylonian civilization, which is also where astrology originates from. So we now are going to be seeing Gemini is, information. Gemini is the twins. Gemini is ruled by Mercury, has very quick communications, but it's not necessarily the philosopher, the teacher, the scholar, the well-traveled person that is represented by Sagittarius. So now that we've gone through coronavirus, we will likely be seeing, ourselves getting more involved in local community and interacting more with the people that are immediately around us, but also on the internet, but not so much physically going to for long distances. And I imagine for the next year and a half or so, also with Saturn in Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius, Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, which represents, like I said before, external authority and structure. It's more of a restrictive sense, whereas Jupiter is expansive. Capricorn wants to restrict, so there's restrictions on humanity right now, and also consequences for our actions. So it's interesting that as soon as Saturn went into Aquarius, the coronavirus began to lock people down. And right now, from the perspective of Earth, Saturn is going backwards in the sky. So that's why they say Saturn is retrograde. Saturn is retrograde for a little while here. I'm not exactly sure how long. I'll have to get back to you on when it goes direct again, but we will probably see easing of restrictions and all of that related to coronavirus. And then as Saturn moves forward, we're going to see what the consequences are of those easing of restrictions. But between that, generally, I think with Saturn in Aquarius, and also with the North Node in Gemini, we're going to be more localized, and but also sharing a lot of information about the things that we've learned from going within into ourselves, from being in the North Node in Cancer. So a thing about astrology is that it's giving us it's giving us the symbolism of the cycles of our lives. So if we kind of pay attention to that, we might be able to get some insight into what it is that we're supposed to be doing at this time in our lives. So at this time, it's going to be a time to share our information. It's not necessarily going to be information that's clear cut or even clear that it's the truth, because Gemini is, there's two sides to everything. We also have Venus in Gemini right now squaring Neptune, so that Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, and Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, the last sign representing the end of life, and so it's like you're almost getting ready to ascend out of your physical body and go on to the afterlife and what comes next. And so that can be a very dreamy, unrealistic place to be in a way. or it can be extremely intuitive. So I think we really need to make sure we're using our intuition by staying grounded into nature, and also, you know, maybe studying astrology. If you don't know how the nodes are changing, is going to impact you most in depending on what houses those signs fall in. So there's 12 constellations in the zodiac. When you were born, there was a certain constellation on the horizon at the dawn, and that's called your rising sign. That's the first house. And then you have 12 subsequent houses, and they all rule different aspects of your life. So if you would like to know more about that, you can contact me and I can give you a reading to tell you more about how to utilize the nodal change in your life. For me, Cancer is in my 12th house. So I've been spending the last year and a half really tuning into my intuition. The 12th house, just like the zodiac, the houses represent, they basically are like, you know, the 12th house is like the house of Pisces. The first house is the house of Aries, and so on, just the way the zodiac goes in a circle. And maybe I'll do a video about that, just like basic astrology and how that works. But now Gemini is in my 11th house, and Gemini is the house of Aquarius. Well, I mean, the 11th house is the house of Aquarius, and mine is in Gemini. So now I'm probably going to be communicating with more people about my ideas and my information. And in about 9 years or so, when the North Node gets back to Sagittarius, we're going to be in a very different place. We're going to have all the planets have gone into Aquarius. We're going to have Pluto enter Aquarius. You know, this age of Aquarius is supposed to be being birthed right now. And it's not necessarily going to be a quick process. But we are going to a different place. Humanity is evolving.